Hey there, YouTube. Welcome back to another comic book video. We are going to continue our coverage over the Squadron Supreme from the early 2000s. Remember that when it comes to Marvel, that the Squadron Supreme is really just their version of the Justice League, because Marvel wanted to have the Avengers to fight against the Justice League. But of course, they can't use the characters from DC Comics, so they had to make their own version of those characters. Now, every single version of the Squadron Supreme comes from different universes of Marvel's multiverse. But by the 2000s, Marvel wanted to really work from the ground up on a version of the Squadron Supreme. So we got the Supreme Power version of them. So you have Marvel tell the origins of these characters, watch them come together as a team, and also do other stories that could really be great for these characters. Now, by this point, we are seeing a wave of new characters being born in this universe, because at first, every single hero was just a Marvel version of a DC character. But now we are seeing this universe version of Marvel characters to live along with these characters who are just representing DC comic characters. The person who is going to lead this team is really Nick Fury from the Ultimate Marvel Universe. He is stuck in this universe because of Ultimate Power storyline, but he is trying to capture a set of characters who are technically this universe version of the Fantastic Four, and also using other new heroes as well. And we are also going to learn more about the origin of these characters as well in this wave of new books. And so getting into today's storyline, we actually do pick up right now with Tucker Ford. Now, Tucker Ford is actually the Iron Man of this universe. By the way, his actual code name is Bio General, which honestly is a horrible name for someone like him. Either way, when it comes to Tucker Ford, he was assigned by Nick Fury to find the 4 astronauts who are on the run right now. Of course, the 4 who are technically representing the Fantastic Four in this universe. Now, either way, he was sent to a desert area to hopefully find them. The problem is, though, he does not find them. He finds 2 new beings who are right now fighting against one another. One is called Mangog, and the other one is called the Wolf Ruler of the Winds. Yes, that is their names. We're going to move on. Now, when it comes to Tucker Ford, right now, he is actually trying to fight against them to have the 2 characters stop fighting against one another. The problem is, though, he is just a guy in an Iron Man suit trying to fight against 2 giants. And his Iron Man suit is not as advanced as Iron Man over in the Ultimate Marvel Universe or the Iron Man in the main Marvel Universe. And so when it comes to Tucker Ford, he gets his butt kicked by these 2 giants, and they just continue to fight one another. And that is the moment you have Nick Fury say, "Bring your butt back over here to base right now, because honestly, there's no way you can handle those characters." Now, as soon as Nick says that, back in his office right now, he has a meeting with Old Soldier. Now remember, when it comes to Old Soldier, he's actually the Captain America of this universe. It's just that when it comes to Old Soldier, we have no idea what his actual origin is, because honestly, he just popped up one day. The only thing we do know about him is that he apparently fought in every single war in the past leading up to this moment right now. So World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, heck, probably the Korean War as well. Either way, this man has fought in so many different wars, but no one knows what is his actual true origin. And so that is the moment you have Nick realize it's probably best to bring in Arcania, because maybe she'll be able to actually dive into his mind, but to also dive into his origin to figure out what in the world is this man and where did he come from. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with the Icarus I astronauts. Remember, these are the characters who are technically representing the Fantastic Four in this universe. Now, with that being said, right now with them being on the run, you do have these characters right now apparently breaking into a Las Vegas hotel room, of course, as a way to hide for the time being, because right now, technically, they are on the run. The American government wants them, but on top of that, so does Nick Fury. And so right now, you have all these people who want them, and they're just trying to hide somewhere as a way to relax for the time being. Now, that is the moment where we actually do jump over to Arcania, Nick Fury, but also Old Soldier. I forgot his name for a brief second right there. Now, this is the moment where you actually have our heroes trying to figure out the origin of Old Soldier. Now, you do have Arcania use her powers, her quantum powers, as a way to kind of dive into the mind of Old Soldier. Now, when she does that, she's just trying to figure out what is his actual origin story. Now, when she does that, she comes to find out this man has died in almost every single war that America was involved in. The problem is, though, they have no idea how in the world this man was able to come back to life. Now, that is the moment where you do have Emil Burbank walk in. Now, when Emil Burbank walks in, he says right off the bat that he knows the origin of Old Soldier. Now, remember, when it comes to Emil, he is technically the Lex Luthor of this universe. But on top of that, when it comes to his powers, it makes him the smartest person on the planet. But what he says right now is that when it comes to Old Soldier, he is just a combination of dead soldiers over time. Because what he says is that when it came to the Icarus I astronauts, when they came back from space with the spores were able to actually travel across America thanks to human contact. But the last human was near a graveyard site of unknown soldiers who had died over time because no one could identify the dead soldiers. But those spores were able to be able to actually take off the psychic energy the dead bodies left behind and take that energy and combine them together into one actual body, Old Soldier. And so that explains how this man died in every single war over time, because he is the combination of dead soldiers just coming together into one pure body thanks to some alien spores. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Neil Ruggles. Now, remember, guys, when it comes to Neil is going to be the Spider-Woman of this universe. Now, right now, we actually see her save the life of this jaywalker who was about to be hit by a car that just went crazy. Now, once she actually does save the jaywalker, the actual driver of the vehicle that went crazy, well, he is saved by Blur. Of course, Blur is the Flash of this universe. Either way, you do have Blur right now actually confront Neil to talk to her about her powers and where she came from. And so this begins the idea of her possibly joining the Squadron Supreme. Now, that is the moment where we do jump back over to Nick Fury and Emil. Now, when we do see Emil right now watching the footage from Bio General's mission in the desert, where of course he had confronted those two giants at the very beginning of our video. Now, of course, that is the moment you have Emil realize that these two giants who are fighting against one another, they're actually talking to one another, and they're calling themselves Mangog and also Wolf, the ruler of the winds. Now, with that being said, though, while you have Emil watch this footage, he realized that these two guys must have human alter egos. And so he realized that the best time to actually confront them is when they're in their regular human form. Now, he's wearing a mask, and you have Nick ask Emil, why in the world are you wearing a mask for? Now, Emil does not answer that question at all. And matter of fact, he just walks out the office without answering Nick Fury. Now, that is the moment where we actually jump over to Nick Fury right now being confronted by Tucker Ford. Now, remember, Tucker Ford is the Iron Man of this universe. Now, with that being said, you do have Tucker coming to Nick and saying to Nick, I have an idea. I actually want to build us helicarriers in this universe. Now, the only reason why Tucker Ford knows about helicarriers is because of the Ultimate Power storyline, where the heroes from the Ultimate Marvel universe had a crossover with this universe right here. And so when that crossover happened, the people of this universe were actually able to see a helicarrier. And so right now you have Tucker Ford telling Nick, I want us to have a helicarrier over here so that we have headquarters. Now, Nick is somewhat down with this idea. And matter of fact, Tucker Ford is down to pay for it. Now, while you have the two guys actually talk to one another, and matter of fact, you have Arcania walk into the room, that is also the moment where you have Blur appear with Neil. Of course, again, Neil is just the Spider-Woman of this universe. Either way right now, that is the moment where Nick realized that there's someone else out there in the world that has powers, which is this girl right here, who is basically the Spider-Woman of this universe. Either way, while you have all the characters actually talking to one another, well, that is the moment they realize that a press conference is about to happen in Las Vegas. And of course, it is the Icarus One astronauts, the ones who are on the run, the ones that Nick is trying to capture, but so is the American government. And it seems like they are about to tell the entire world what the American government did to them. Because remember, they were technically locked away as soon as they came back from space. And they were locked away but kept in stasis. And they had no idea how long they were kept in stasis. And so it seems like they are about to tell the world every single secret of the American government. And so as we get into the second chapter for today's storyline, we do pick up with the Icarus One astronauts right now telling the world about what the American government had actually done to them. That, of course, as soon as they had returned from space, they were taken away and kept in stasis. Now, the question is, though, why did they do that? For good reasons or bad reasons? But the problem is, though, no one knows if it's good or bad. The only thing they do know is that the American government, the American military, they're hiding something. They're hiding some kind of plans. And right now you have a world full of people just rising up with powers left and right. But instead of telling the public about that, they want to keep everything hush hush. And the question is right now, why? Now remember, guys, so far in this universe, the American government or the military has not really been hated by the public at all yet. Instead, the military in the government, they're technically looked at as heroes, because as soon as these characters start popping up left and right with powers and everything, the government and the military stepped in and said, we are going to control the people who are power beings. But now you have these astronauts coming out saying, no, the government could actually be bad. Because instead of telling you guys that right now there are a wave of new heroes rising up, they want to keep everything hush hush. And the question is right now, why? And so you have Nick very excited about this because he wanted the world to know about the idea that there are people out there right now with powers. But of course, he was told, you better not go public. But now he doesn't even have to go public because the Icarus One astronauts did it for him. Now we do get back over to Nick Fury's crew, and when we do, we actually see Neil or Nell try to get away from Nick Fury's group, because remember, she was actually brought here by force by Blur, and so to her, this is the perfect time to actually try to escape. Unfortunately, Bio General is there to actually grab her and bring her right back just like that. And so unfortunately for the girl, her escape attempt was actually a bad idea in the first place. Now, that is the moment where we actually do jump over to Emil Burbank. And right now, we actually see him going over to a desert nearby Las Vegas. And the reason why, because he found one of the two giants that he was actually looking for. He finds Wolf, ruler of the wind. Now, of course, when he does find Wolf, ruler of the wind, he's right now in his regular human form. Now, this is Emil trying to have Wolf actually work for him for some future plan down the road. But on top of that, he's trying to blackmail Wolf by saying that, hey man, listen, I don't think your wife knows about your alter ego, of course, being Wolf, the ruler of the wind. But of course, when it comes to Wolf, he's kind of like, dude, listen, I don't know who you are. And even though you're trying to blackmail me by telling my wife my dark secret, honestly, I don't care. And he just transforms and goes away. And so you have Emil realize that it's probably best to leave him alone for the time being. Now, that is the moment where we do jump back over to the Icarus One astronauts who are right now doing that press conference. Now, while they're doing the press conference, you do have Department of Homeland Security arrive to actually try to capture the astronauts. Now, here comes the big problem though, because these astronauts, they have powers now. And so they are actually able to fight back against these guys who are trying to arrest them. And so it does lead into a small battle, but they're able to actually get away from these guys. And of course, this is a failure for Homeland Security. So now they have to think of a new game plan to bring them in. And so that is the moment where we do jump over to Nick Fury and his group right now, where you actually have Nick Fury telling his group that he wants to bring in the Icarus One astronauts into his fold. And the reason why, because he feels like they'll be a great fit for what he is trying to do. Because right now, it's Nick Fury trying to make S.H.I.E.L.D. over here in this universe. But on top of that, he's trying to form his own Squadron Supreme. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Arcana, she asked Nick Fury, or really questioned him, to make sure that he is not as evil as Homeland Security, because she wants to know what is his reasons to actually bring them in for, to make sure that his reasons are not as bad as Homeland Security. But of course, you have Nick say no, because we are the good guys. We are S.H.I.E.L.D. We are the Squadron Supreme, soon to come. Now, that is the moment where we actually jump over to Emil Burbank. And when we do, we see him right now at Las Vegas University. And the reason why, because right now he is actually meeting up with the other giant known as Brian Callahan. Now, this is Emil telling us, the readers, that he feels like Brian Callahan is somewhat easier to convince than the other giant. And so right now it's him saying, hey, Brian, listen, I need your help for a special project of mine. Are you down? And of course, it seems like Emil is about to have a new friend that could cause some problems down the road for Nick Fury and the Squadron Supreme. But then we jump back over to the 4 astronauts from Icarus One. Of course, that is the moment they are found by Nick Fury's group. Now, at first, this is Nick Fury really trying to bring them in. But of course, when it comes to the Icarus One astronauts, they're not really down into actually talking to Nick Fury at first. And so it does lead into a big battle between the two sides. Now, while this battle is actually happening, we can say right off the bat right now that both sides are technically equal. No one has the advantage over the other, except that is the moment where you do have Blur step in. And when you have Blur step in, you have Blur being able to actually help Nick Fury's group defeat the Icarus One astronauts. Now, once that is done right there, that is the moment where you have Nick say, listen, I can make you guys part of my organization, S.H.I.E.L.D. I can make you guys agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, when it comes to one of the astronauts, Kathy, she's kind of down with the idea of actually joining Nick Fury. And matter of fact, she does tell the rest of her group that possibly this is a good idea to join Nick Fury's side. Now, that is the moment where we do get this quick jump back over to Emil. And when we do, we see him right now with Callahan at this bar. And of course, this is the moment where we kind of find out that Emil was able to actually convince Callahan to join him in his some kind of experiment. Now, we have no idea what this experiment actually is, but we're going to find out very soon down the road. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Edith Fairberg. Now, remember, when it comes to Edith, she's actually inertia in this series, in this universe. And honestly, she just has super strength. Now, with that being said, though, she was a former member of the Squadron Supreme, but she left the team. And so right now, we see her at the bar, and she's kind of feeling sad because she actually missed her old team members. But when she does leave the bar, well, that is the moment where she does see this strange green light. And of course, she's kind of wondering what in the world is possibly going on. And so as we get into the final chapter for today's video, we actually do pick up right now with the president telling the world that right now he has all the different government agencies right now out there looking for the 4 astronauts from Icarus 1. Now, in reality, though, he can't find them. And the reason why? Because they're with Nick Fury. But on top of that, another reason why they're having a hard time actually locating the astronauts is because of Arcana. Because right now you have Arcania using her powers right now to show multiple images of the 4 astronauts across the world. So for example, they appear in New York or in Miami or even LA. And so right now the government is having a hard time trying to figure out where are the astronauts actually at. But in reality, this is right now Nick Fury just trying to buy time, because right now he has them, but he knows that sooner or later one of the government agencies is going to find out that Nick Fury is actually holding on to them. But then we jump over to Old Soldier. Now, when we do, we actually see Old Soldier right now getting ready to take down a couple guys who actually did plan to go on some kind of shooting spree. But of course, with Old Soldier being there, he was actually able to stop the guy before they're able to actually commit murder across Washington, D.C. And so honestly, it's a great thing for the character of Old Soldier, and we might see him do some more things down the road in later stories. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up right now with Nick Fury meeting up with the president. Now, when he does, he tells her right off the bat what he wants to do. He said, listen, my goal is to bring S.H.I.E.L.D. over here in this universe. But on top of that, I feel like your other government agencies, they're failing at their jobs. And this is where I can come in. I can come in and tell you, listen, if you give me the key to the car to make S.H.I.E.L.D., I can make S.H.I.E.L.D. one of the best things ever in this universe. But on top of that, the heroes have been mistreated. And what I mean by that is your government, your military, except having heroes be actually heroes, you have these heroes being treated like criminals. And that right there is not okay at all. And so I'm telling you, the better idea is to make heroes be heroes. And so that is where I come in. You'll get S.H.I.E.L.D., but we also get the chance to have heroes be heroes. So let's go. I want you to clear everything on these astronauts so that they're able to actually work for me. Now, that is the moment where we actually do jump back over to Emil Burbank. Now, we can't forget, guys, when it came to Emil Burbank, he wanted to do some kind of experiment with Brian Callahan. Now, we still have no idea what kind of project this is. And matter of fact, as the project goes on, it actually doesn't go well. I mean, Emil is not killed off, neither is Brian, but you have Brian realize that he has to get out of there. And so he does transform to his giant-sized form and he gets the heck out of there, which of course does seem to ruin Emil's project. Now, getting over to Arcania, because right now she has been using her powers to basically make it seem that the astronauts appear all over the world at the same time. But DHS, of course, Department of Homeland Security, they do arrive to actually capture her. Now, as soon as they do capture her, they tell her, you better take us over to Nick Fury. And of course, she's kind of like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll take you over to Nick Fury right now. And so that is the moment where we actually do pick up right now with Nick Fury swearing in the astronauts into the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, here comes the problem, though, because right when he does that, the DHS appear. And when they do appear, of course, they came here to arrest Nick Fury. On top of that, they believe that Nick Fury had used Arcania as a way to control the president, to confuse the president. Now, of course, before they're able to actually discuss this, well, that is the moment where you do have Brian appear right in the middle of the room. Remember, he is Mangog. And so when he appears in the room in his giant form, he begins to wreck the place. Now, that is the moment where you do have the astronauts begin to come in and actually use their powers as a way to fight against Mangog. Now, the only reason why Homeboy is going crazy is because he was part of Emil's project, but no one else knows about that at all. Either way, you do have the astronauts being able to come together to actually defeat the Mangog, to knock him out. And so this shows DHS, but also the president, that if you give folks a chance to actually be heroes, they can do great things. And lo and behold, look at what these guys did right here. They saved the president, Nick Fury, and also other people who were in the same room as well. But after that big battle between Mangog and the 4 astronauts, you do have everybody kind of sit down where they are actually able to talk to one another, where you have DHS actually agree to leave the astronauts alone so that they'll be able to actually join SHIELD, which is a great thing. But here comes the big problem though, guys, because right after you had DHS back off to let them join SHIELD, that is the moment we see that Nick Fury finally gets what he wants. He now has SHIELD. He now has superheroes working for him. He now has this superhero agency that can do almost anything across the world. Except that is the moment he is confronted by Hyperion and Doctor Spectrum. Because let's not forget, the original Squadron Supreme, they all disappeared after Ultimate Power, and there was a 5-year gap from Ultimate Power to now. And so with that being said, he's kind of like, listen, they've been gone. It's time for us to replace them. Well, now you have Hyperion and Doctor Spectrum coming back like, no, we're back. And matter of fact, we believe that we have the right to save the world, not you guys, especially not a human like you, Nick Fury. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So hit that like button down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.